Hello there, I'm Chronix and welcome to my in-depth bass tutorial. This is part 1 where I'll be covering the basics of the initial sound design. For this I'll be using Ableton Live, Native Instruments FM8 and Native Instruments Massive along with Sugarbyte's Whale filter. So to start off I shall be getting FM8 in there. Now the first thing I will do is group this to an instrument rack. From here we can assign various parameters to the macro controls to make the movement in the sound, which I'll be covering later. So first off, in FM8 I want to go to the expert and I want to turn on these two dials. So I've got D, E and F are all linked together. I'll use modulation from one parameter to modulate the next, like so. You drag up just in the boxes there. So to start off with, my first oscillator I'm going to put on a fourth formant. My second oscillator I'm going to put on TX Wave 6, and my final oscillator I'm going to put on a sawtooth. Now as it stands it's going to be a pretty basic sound. As you can hear there, a lot of these sounds start off very basic, so don't be disheartened if that's the sound you get to start off with. Now I'm going to click map mode and I'm going to map the modulation parameter to my macro 1 for both of those. And then up the top here we've got the macro mapping box. This basically shows when this dial is down at 0, excuse me, when this box is down at 0, that's the minimum amount, and when this is up full, that's as high as it will go there. Now I don't want those to sit as they are, so I'm going to turn these up a little bit and these down. So now when I hit a key and turn the dial, that's the sort of sound you get. From here I'm going to go into the effects tab within FM8 and I'm going to add a phaser and a flanger, and I'm also going to turn the dry wet down slightly on both of those, and on the flanger I'm going to map the depth. I'm going to invert the range, which means when this dial is turned right up it will be on 0, and when it's turned right down it will be on 100%. Again, I don't want the full effects, so I'm going to bring that down slightly and that up a little bit, and now we have this sound. As you can hear, it's getting there slightly. I'm also going to modulate the dry wet of the phaser, and I'm going to have that start at about 15, and I don't want too much phaser on that, so I'm going to bring that down to about 40%, like so. From here I'm going to go into the master channel of FM8. I'm going to turn the voices up to about 3 and the detune down slightly. Okay, so that's quite a nice sound we've got there. I'm going to shut down FM8 now. And within the instrument rack, I'm now going to add a Native Instruments Massive underneath the FM8. The good thing with instrument racks is you can have multiple synths running on the same instrument, so you can get some real big sounds. So I'm going to go to New Sound. Within Massive, I'm going to put the first oscillator on a sine wave, just to give it some nice underlying sub bass. that sounds quite nice. I'm going to turn a low pass 2 onto that, turn the resonance down, cut off up slightly. Just going to give that a little bit of tube distortion, not too much. About a quarter of the way on the dry wet and the drive. It's got quite a nice sound to it already. I'm going to leave that as it is and rename that sub, just so we know what that is. So we've got the FM8 and the sub running on the same key, on the same instrument rack. And turning the dial. It's quite a nice sound to it. On the FM8 channel, I'm going to leave the sub clean, leave that as it is, don't want to add any effects to that. On the FM8, I'm just going to add a Sugarbytes wow filter, just put that inside the instrument rack so we can link it all together. Click the vowel mode, turn it from band pass to band reject, click this dial, and I'm also going to map that. Again, don't want it 100% all the way, so I'm going to turn that up a little bit and that down. So now we've got this. Sounds lovely. Now from here, we've got one FM8 and one instance of massive. I'm going to put a second FM8 in there and do pretty much what I did on the first one. We're going to turn those two on, make sure they're all routed to the master output, and we're going to link those together too. From here I'm going to map those as well, same as we did the first one, map them both together, turn them up slightly and down on the maximum. So these waveforms, they're really good. You can pick pretty much any of these, you'll get good Neuro sounds out of them. So let's go for a square on that one. So sounds quite overpowering. Once we get some effects on there, that should tame it down considerably. On this one, I'm going to use the depth of the flanger, and I'm going to invert that. Dry wet of the phaser I'm going to bring down slightly, and the rate down slightly, and I'm not going to touch anything else on that. I'm not going to automate anymore. And that is pretty much it for the basics of the sound design. So just to recap, we've got one instrument rack within Ableton, we've got two instances of FM8 and one instance of Massive, all running in the one instrument rack. So we've got 3 synths for one instrument. And various parameters are linked to the Macro 1 controller, which gives it the movement, which I'll be showing you how to get modulations and automations in my second part. Okay, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you again in part 2.